Hello viewers, with 1 month to go until the release of Forza Motorsport, we've had a fair amount of information about the multiplayer in this game. So in the most recent Forza Monthly, they went into quite a lot of detail about the multiplayer. Okay, let's begin this with the safety rating and the skill rating in public multiplayer. Now firstly, safety rating going from S, A, B, C, D, E, F, going to grade you on how well you obey racing rules, like not ramming the crap out of each other, ideally. So you have that, then you have the skill rating, which I'm blocking. Can we see it there? There we go. 3,381. So it's going to be a number between 1 and 5,000, 5,000 being the best, I'm presuming. You'll be put into lobbies based primarily on your skill rating and then on your safety rating. So this is quite a nice development, because in the past, of course, you were always going to get rammed off by that one guy or two guys at the back who are going backwards in a van, smashing everyone about. So hopefully now we'll have a situation where the rammers, they can go in their own little lobby over there, and if you want to race properly, you'll get a nice rating and you can race properly. It's fairly similar to the Gran Turismo system, I suppose, with the DR and SR. I suppose the only bad thing might be if you get caught up in a bad lobby. I hear this comment a lot where I'm in a C-rated lobby and I just can't escape from C rating because I keep getting smashed about. So as you can see at the top of this here, it says spec events, open events, introduction. So let's go to the qualifier series first. And it shows us a fair amount of information about the game. So this is where you're going to start off your career, so to speak, online. So you're going to have to do a couple of races in order to get an initial skill rating and an initial safety rating within the qualifier series. Quite interestingly, here it says race length short, Hakone 7 laps. I think Hakone is going to be quite a short circuit then. And then it moves slightly along to this screen. So if you look at that, it says laps 7 for a Laguna Seca race, and that is a short race apparently. And very interestingly, that says Laguna Seca short circuit, which is something I've never seen before. But yeah, the Hakone is the club circuit, which I'm guessing is a shortened version. So I'm guessing overall a short race is probably between like 5 and 8 minutes. And another massive thing here, which is different than the hopper system in the previous games, is the fact that the race starts at a certain time. So 2:30 that race starts, then 2:50 for the Laguna Seca race, and then 3:10 p.m. for the Grand Oak race. And again, this is kind of borrowing from the Gran Turismo system, and I think this could work really well. I think this could be quite a good way of doing it, but we shall see. So it's going to be less, so I feel like this is less open compared to before. In previous Forza games, of course, you just had all the hoppers. You can do B, A, C, whatever you wanted to do at any time. But this is a bit more, you must join the race at a certain time. And this kind of goes along with their new system of having the open practice, the qualifier, and then the race. Everything's a bit more systematic. So I don't know if this is like the final build. So obviously this is not the final build, it says so there, but if there's one race every 20 minutes and that's the only one you can join, I mean, who knows? Is that enough races? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But then of course you do have the spec and the open events, which we can see here. So this is the spec event, and on the left hand side, if I just move myself out of the way once again, you can see that there's 4 different events. And Chris Esaki was saying that the touring car series and the Forza GT car series, so the top 2 there, will kind of be permanent fixtures. They're always going to be there. And then the other ones, so here there's a BMW M3 series, and then there's a Formula 60s, and there's a scroll bar, so it looks like there's going to be another one down below, maybe. They're going to revolve and change every week. So once a week they'll change. So here the races are a lot more often. You can see 12:23, 12:26, 12:29. Quite a bit of a scroll bar, so there might be 2-3 more to the right. But this is essentially where everyone's going to have the same car and you can race on quite an even basis, which I quite like. I really like this idea of having this. And then they move over to this, the open events. And this is a bit more like the hoppers we had in the previous game, where you just have a B-class car, bring any B-class car, and it's a bit more familiar that way. However, the way he was saying it, again, it's going to revolve once a week. So I don't know if it's just going to be one hopper. You see it's just B-class. They might have multiples. Certainly there's more restriction compared to before, because I was always a lover of S-class or A-class, and it might be a shame to not be able to race my favourite class whenever I want. At the same time, I'm really keen just to see how this plays out, and I'm quite open to new ideas. And of course, I'd love to know if you guys are like keen on this or if you're not. Looking at the race length, it says a short race, 6 laps around Road America East, which I think East Route is just the big sort of oval. So that would certainly be less than 10 minutes, maybe like a 6 or 7 minute race. Whereas if we go back to the spec events here, or the touring car event, it says race length medium, laps 7, and you're looking about 2-minute lap, I think, around here, maybe more. So that's perhaps a 15-minute race. So certainly a bit longer there. That gives you a bit more time to really settle into the race. And that, of course, leaves the question of how long will a long race be. I mean, it could be over half an hour. So it's good to have these varying lengths. In previous Forzas, it's always quite sort of static. It would always be sort of 6 to 8 minutes per race, and it didn't really change too much. But overall, I quite like this new system. It looks pretty good. It seems as though it borrows the sort of the best bits of Gran Turismo. I'm not saying they just copy Gran Turismo. I don't really care, to be honest. I just want a good game. I'd like it to work. That would be great if it did. But yes, certainly not as free as it was in Forza 7 or previous Forzas. Because you could, of course, just run into the problem where what if they create some races and the races you don't like, or again, like the class they put up in the open events is a class you don't really care for. So you could be faced with a week where you're like, these tracks, I don't really like them, or this class or this spec event is kind of boring. So that all covers like the format of the multiplayer. This is some gameplay here around Kyalami in very heavy rain. And I think this is going to be an important aspect of online multiplayer, just the variance of it in terms of the weather and the track conditions. It will just mix it up a little bit more compared to previous games, previous Forzas. So on the bottom right of the HUD there, you can see the wet tyre, the fuel, and the tyre wear. This is going to add another element of strategy to the racing, which I think is pretty cool. The fact that you have to consider how much fuel to put into the car. Make sure you don't overfuel it so you're too heavy. And of course, getting that tyre compound right. It'll be interesting to see how much they implement the weather, whether or not it's sort of dry most of the time. I always remember on Forza 7 when you had the vote for the next track, and if it was a wet one, people just never voted for it. It was just, no one cared. So people just wanted to race in the dry. Will that be the same? Maybe. But I think that, they're going to force it to some extent because it's not on a voting system on this game. I kind of partially touched upon this in my previous video, but I want to go into this in a bit more detail for this because I think this will have quite an effect on the way the multiplayer is played. You can see here, this is a pre-race menu, or during practice, as it says on the top right, and they're deciding the fuel load and the tyres to put on the car. And then it tells you on the right-hand side the information about the race, how many laps you get in qualifying, how many laps are in the race. You're going to use this information presumably to decide which tyres to put on. I still think there's going to be a meta worked out quite quickly. Perhaps it's just simply best to put the soft tyre on and just go hard and then that's it. But hopefully they've made the game in such a way that it isn't simply easiest just to put the best tyre on and then that's it. And then fuel obviously factors in. You see it says here, if you put too much fuel in, it's going to affect the car. Heavier car is slower acceleration and worse handling. So that again kind of fundamentally changes the way the multiplayer is. It's a bit more alive now compared to before, and there's just going to be a bit more to think about. And of course, let's not forget the track rubbers in as the race goes on, so that's another factor that you're going to have to think about during the race. And during this race, as you can see at the top, it says pit this lap. Tyres are bald. How many laps have they done? They've only done 4 laps on medium tyres. That's quite interesting to know that you can only do 4 laps on mediums around Silverstone in this kind of car. I don't know if there's a tyre wear multiplier like there is in Gran Turismo, but it's just quite interesting to see how long or how much you can get out of each set of tyres. So in this case, 4 laps before you're going to have to change over. What tyre do they change over to? They change over to another set of mediums, and it kind of gives you a couple of recommendations there. And then a 2.7 second stop. Epic stop there by the, what even car is that? I don't even know what that is. By the boys in the factory of that car, whatever car that is. And whilst we're on the subject of tyres, it does go into some detail about the difference in performance of the tyres. So at the moment it says medium, lap time 1 minute 53.6, and then they do flick through. A hard tyre says 1 minute 54.9, so just over a second slower, and a soft tyre 152.3, so about 1.3 seconds per lap difference around Silverstone in that car. So I quite like these changes. It does add another element into the game that you have to think about. It doesn't look too complex. So on this gameplay here of Silverstone, so I think it's the same race again. You have obviously the HUD, full HUD, and on the top left, You have some details, time gap. They've kind of kept a similar HUD here. And then the penalties that each player is getting and whether or not how many pit stops they've done or if they're in the pit lane right now. And of course, penalties, this is something that they sort of introduced in Forza 7 with the Forza Race Regulations FRR system, which makes a return here. So you can see here an example, they go off the track and it deems that to not be a penalty. During these talks, they did quite a lot of, again, developer speak about the new FRR system. It doesn't seem like it's too much different than before. And thankfully now with FRR, it means they don't have to have so many of those damn tyre walls everywhere. In my opinion, it's kind of like nothing new. We had this in Forza 7, but they do go over it a fair amount in this Forza Monthly. So other things relating to multiplayer, private multiplayer available, of course. Lots of settings you can change. Your skill and safety rating aren't affected in these modes. Spectating is no longer available in a lobby. Racing against AI is no longer possible in a multiplayer lobby. And split screen is not possible in the game. So they appear to have cut out quite a few features there compared to FM7. So let's take a look at the bigger picture here. I think multiplayer is something I'm personally really looking forward to. And I think it's something that if they get it right, then this game will be worth coming back to. I think for a lot of us, sure, many of us are going to be playing for single player only. But I think in terms of the multiplayer, if they nail it and the format is good and it is genuinely playable, then I think lots of us will stick around and play this game. Just like the car list and the track list, they appear to have trimmed out quite a lot in the attempt to make the game have more quality rather than quantity. I really actually quite like the look of the new format where you have the races at certain times and then the hoppers or the lobbies will change every week. I quite like that system. There's definitely scope here for Forza enthusiasts of, all the previous games to be slightly disappointed with that change. Having the hopper system, which was very open and very free, you can do whatever race you wanted at any time. No longer having that might not be the best thing for a lot of people. So quite a comprehensive look at the multiplayer there. As you can see here, I do have access to the game. I touched upon this in a previous video. And on the 11th of September, I can start uploading content on Forza Motorsport. And I think it'd be really interesting once the game does come out and multiplayer is open, how it plays and how good it will be. But as ever, let me know your thoughts. I'm really keen to know what you guys think about the multiplayer and what we know so far. And in the meantime, have an amazing day. I'll catch you next time. Goodbye.